All right, well, welcome to the session tonight. My name is John Marr. I work in career services. Bobby Kingery is also in the meeting today. She's the director of career services. Some of you have interacted with me, with her, or with both of us. We always welcome you to join us in career services for any help that you might need. Tonight's session and showcase is Harlie Bunyard from Hope of East Central Illinois. I want you to know that Harlie was sitting in your shoes about a year ago, and she has progressed through some different positions at Hope since she graduated. But I want you to know that Harlie and I worked together for several years, and Bobby had her hands in all of this too. We all worked together. Harlie is a person that we are huge advocates for. And I got to tell you that I'm really proud of Harlie and everything that she's done, not only while she was in school, but as she was graduating and then since she's been out. That's my introduction. Harlie, welcome. It's funny to sit on this side of the desk now, isn't it? This is your session. It's all yours. So thank you, Harlie, for doing this for us.
Okay. Well, like you said, I'm Harlie Bunyard. I work at Hope of East Central Illinois, which is our local domestic violence shelter, and I am the shelter manager, and I'll go into that a little bit more. This is my first big seminar, so yay. And One thing that John and Bobby love to do is positive praise, and I hate positive praise. So for them to say I'm amazing, I'm just a normal person. I just have a passion for what I do. So, and have been able to execute it, and they have helped, and I'll get to that. So I'm going to touch base on what Hope is in case you don't know, and then talk about my experience at Hope, and then my experience of like how I got here. And again, like John said, you can ask questions along the way. I also talk fast, so I'm sorry. So if I need to clarify anything, just let me know. But yeah, so Hope is our domestic violence agency, and it's serves the 7 counties in this area, which are Coles, Clark, Cumberland, Douglas, Edgar, Moultrie, and Shelby counties. So if you're not familiar with the area, the bigger cities are like Paris, Shelbyville, Sullivan, Charleston, Mattoon, Marshall. So kind of within about 30 to 45 minutes, that's our biggest branch. And we have under Hope, we have like umbrellas of how we can help in domestic violence. So if you don't know, domestic violence is when you have a significant relationship with someone. So it can be personal. So like you can be your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, or it can also be your mom, dad, sister, brother, roommate, anybody that you share a significant relationship with. If they were to harm you, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or sexually, or financially. Those are kind of the things that fall under domestic violence and what we work with. And then under that, we work in different ways. So there are different parts of our agency that help with different things. So we have a legal advocacy part that helps with like orders of protection, more commonly known as restraining orders, and can also get information for like divorces, custody, anything that might have to do with criminal cases, with domestic batteries, that kind of thing. We have a children's program which helps provide counseling services for children who are abused by either their parents or someone in their life. And then we have a counseling program. We provide emergency transportation to shelter, to court, things like that. We do community education, so this would be included in that. And we have a shelter program. And so the shelter program is the thing that I know most about because I'm the shelter manager. And it is an emergency shelter where families are experiencing a domestic violence situation. they can flee to our agency for approximately a month and a half, which sums about 45 days. And in those 45 days, we basically help them get on their feet in whatever way that looks like. For some people, it's getting jobs. For some people, it's going through with working with their DCFS caseworkers and doing things that they ask so they don't lose their kids. For some people, it's filling out paperwork, and I mean, the list is just long. So whatever they need, we help them. And if we can't specifically do it, we refer them to someone who can, and help in those things. Because if you've ever worked in social work or done things, some of the applications are really difficult to understand and comprehend. So we kind of come alongside them, and some of us learn as we're going and help them out in that. So I have been with Hope since June of 2018. I started as a shelter advocate, and I worked 1 day a week for 8 hours. And in my first 2 months, they said I had the new person curse. And so I got all of the really difficult cases within my first month of being here. So I had the police always at our door, or we had to call the fire department, or people were, fighting. So it was a lot to go through, but I found that I absolutely love what I do. So then they're like, okay, let's give you 4 days a week. So I worked 4 days a week and got a full-time position in March of 2019. Made a little bit more money, got more experience. And then in April of 2020, they offer, like, I kept doing more and it kept getting more difficult. And so I've just worked my way up, I guess is what I'm trying to say in a way. And then in June of 2020, I was asked to be the shelter manager. And so I've been doing that for the last 7 months at Hope. So not only was I right out of college as I graduated in June of 2020, but we were also in the middle of a pandemic, which makes things difficult. So we couldn't do anything in person. Our shelter shut down. And we kind of all had to figure out how to do things completely differently. Plus, I was now in charge of 10 people, which I had never done before. So it's been a big learning curve. But I absolutely love it. I love my job. I think if I ever try to leave Hope, they'll never let me. But I've learned a lot. And there's a lot that we do. So my favorite part is helping people realize things that they already have. So like teaching them coping strategies that are simple as inhale for 4, hold, exhale for 4, which is so simple, but it makes a big difference when you're going through a panic attack or when you're dealing with emotional trauma or anything like that. And so just being able to come alongside them and say, let's just breathe for a second, and teaching them how to breathe has been really cool. I also really love kids. So unfortunately, we do have a lot of children in the program. And so being able to get on the floor and crawl around with them and do all kinds of stuff with them is also some of my favorite things. Do I ask questions now? Do I keep going?
Whatever you want to do, Harlie. Does anybody have any questions about what Hope does right now? How about for Harlie?
Well, actually, Harley, you said when the pandemic hit, you had to kind of figure out new ways of doing what you were trying to do. So, what kind of changes did you come up with?
Well, so we realized that our shelter that we were working in wasn't conducive to COVID, because you're supposed to be 6 feet apart from people, and we probably couldn't be 2 feet apart from people. Our shelter office was about the size of a bathroom. So, I mean, so to do intakes with 5 kids is really hard, but then to do them with masks and social distancing wasn't going to happen. So we did have to close our in-person shelter and use secondary shelter locations, and work work virtually with them, put them in a different place where they were safe, but we couldn't meet with them in person. So everything was on the phone, which, if you've talked to somebody in a crisis on the phone, or like your mom or your brother, when you're, you're just like, I'm so frustrated. When you're in person with that person, it's so much easier to express those emotions versus talking to someone on the phone. And then if you have to talk to a stranger on the phone and tell them your deepest, darkest feelings and secrets, it's even worse. So we adapted and learned and are still learning, and but we are back in person, and it has been challenging to say the least, but it has been amazing to be able to come alongside them again and be able, and it makes a difference to be in person. So yeah.
Harlie,
Yeah.
this is you work in a sensitive area where safety and security are primary to what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
How do you protect the identities or the location or just the people that are in the shelter?
So everybody that knows about the shelter or comes into shelter or talks about the shelter has a confidentiality waiver. So all the things I talk about with shelter are super vague, so that you can't pick it up and who it is, because you never know who knows anybody, and you also never know who could be listening. So we have confidentiality is super big in our program for not just our staff, which we're required by law to keep everything confidential, but then the clients also have to make sure to keep that. And then we also work really closely with the police. So if I have a suspicion that someone is putting my shelter in danger, or they could be driving by or something like that, we can call the police and they can take care of it. So yeah.
So Harlie, one of the things that I hear a lot from students when I meet with them
Mhm.
prior to them graduating is the fear of, so I've got my degree, but I really don't know what I'm doing, right? How did you learn all of that?
I still don't know what I'm doing. But I've been technically almost graduated for a year and I'm still figuring it out. But I think for me, it was volunteering and trying new things. And so when I graduated from Eastern, I had 5 years of experience in social work because I knew that I wanted to do social work. Um, so I tried a whole bunch of different things. Um, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, it did. You got it through experience and the things that you did prior to graduation.
right.
You have on-the-job training because you're still learning about how to deal with things. Did you have some formal training when you first started at Hope?
Yes. So we get 40 hours of domestic violence training and then another 20 hours of shelter training. And then I feel like we're always in training because things always change, laws change, everything changes. Um, so yeah.
That's really good. So anxiety is a pretty normal thing when you're first getting ready to graduate and start a new job. Not only is it normal, but it's healthy to be a little bit anxious. But also know that when you get into a position like that, the training is involved and no one expects you to have that kind of experience when you get there. That's what entry level positions are for. And you learn as you go, right?
Yes. Right.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your story, Harlie, what you're willing to share with everyone.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions about hope before I get into my story? I mean, we can ask questions later, but I just feel like it's easier. No. Okay. So like John said, my Eastern career was rocky to say the least. When I first graduated from Eastern, if you would have told me that I was going to be speaking at Eastern, I would have told you were crazy, because me and Eastern we didn't start on the best page, if I can say that. So I started my college career right after high school in 2014, and I came in as a biology major with hopes to be the next Steve Irwin, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. That's what I wanted to do. And in 2014, I had never been to the ocean, and I lived in Illinois. So as I started doing schooling, I realized I suck at chemistry and I hate math. And those are really important to be a biology major. Um, and so I started to realize that it wasn't gonna work. I also worked at the time when I started college, I worked 2 jobs full time, and was going to school full time, and was basically raising my brother. So school was like number 7 on my list. It was not number 1 or even number 2. And I'm sure you all know school is important, and it's really hard if it's not at the top of your list to get things done. So I started failing classes, plus I suck at chemistry. So I was failing chemistry, I was failing science, failing math, and getting myself into a hole. And then I wasn't working well with my original advisor, and they kept putting me in classes. So then I was on probation. And then by the time I realized that school was about to kick me out, I went to the career services and took the test that tells you like what your things are. I don't know what it's called, but the Focus 2, is that
Focus
right?
2, yep.
Yeah. So I took the Focus 2 test, and it told me that I do suck at math and I do suck at science, and I'm really good at people. And so we started to go, well, maybe I should change that. And so we looked into it, and changing it, and I started to so I changed my major to FCS, and I figured out what I was doing, but I was still working 2 jobs and going to school full time. And so now school was maybe 5th instead of 7th, but still wasn't at the top. But I was getting in classes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense and this is easy. And then life kind of took a downhill spiral in 2016 and just kind of hit a plateau where I couldn't do school at all. It just wasn't going to happen. So I took a break for a year. And because they were like, you either need to take a break or you're going to be kicked out. And I didn't want to be kicked out of school. So I took a medical leave off of school and took a year off. But in that year, I volunteered at, I think, 5 different places. I became a big sister. I worked at the homeless shelter. I got appointed as a court-appointed special advocate for child abuse. And I got certified at SACAS for sexual assault counseling. So I didn't really take a year off, but I got experience in things and it was less stressful than school. So then I came back in 2017 and I was like, I'm going to do this. Everything's going to be great. And then it wasn't, because home life was not the best. And by 2000, but I still kept going. I was barely making it, keeping my grades just above what it needed to be, just so I could get by. And by 2018, I was working 4 jobs and going to school and volunteering at like 5 places. And I, to be honest, don't know how I did it, but I did. So, but then I realized, okay, something's got to give. Like, I can't do this. And that's when Hope offered me the full-time position. And so I was able to go down to one job, and from being 16 to being almost 19, I had never had one job where I could support myself financially, and it was a lot. I was like, oh my gosh, I have weekends off. This is crazy. So it was really cool and exciting. And I was able to focus more on school and able to finally be like, okay, this is what I want. I need to get there. And we, were able to set up the goal of 2020 spring. And then I mean, it wasn't easy, and I didn't end with the best GPA, and school still was never first for me because it couldn't be, because I had to work, and I've raised my brother and all of that stuff. And, focusing home life and school life and balancing work have never been easy for me, but I'm getting better. And so, but I did graduate, so yay. But it wasn't easy. And so I think things that I learned were, don't settle for the first answer. So I failed sociology 4 times, which means I paid like $1,000 to take one class. But the second time that I had taken it, my teacher told me, oh, well, you can't pass this. You have to take it another time. And it's a required class for FCS majors, which was the degree I graduated with. And he told me I'd never make it as a social worker, except I already was a social worker because I was working at Hope full time. I just couldn't pass the test. So I was able, so don't settle for the first answer. So I'm like, no, but I know what I'm doing. I just have to figure it out. So we ended up learning that like Lakeland does it differently. So I took the class at Lakeland and passed it with a C, but still I was able to pass it, get it on my transcript, and be done. And then also I learned to ask for help, which again, I don't like positive praise. I don't like letting people know that I can't do it. So asking for help was really hard. But then getting people in my team in my corner was super important. And there's a few people that I did the work. Obviously, they didn't do the work for me, but I wouldn't have done it if they wouldn't have been there to support me. So asking for help is really important, and seeking services. We all pay in our tuition for services, so you might as well use them. And they're really helpful. Obviously you're all using career services if you're here. But Bobby and John Marr are great, and they did help me, and they're both part of my corner now. I also was a part of TRIO, which is for first generation college students. Eventually I learned that sometimes you have to ask your professors for help, which was not my favorite thing to do. And you have to accept that sometimes they're not gonna understand, and that's okay. Not all of them do. And so some of my professors and I had great conversations, and some of my professors and I didn't. And that's when I went back to my corner, and I was like, okay, well, I went and I did it, but it didn't go well. And then I also sought out counseling. So I went to the counseling center at Eastern almost the entire time I was in school, and so they became part of my team and corner. So seeking for help and asking questions and asking for help. And so then I think using all of that to realize, and then when I graduated, I was getting closer, but I didn't get the big graduation because we were in COVID, right? So I didn't get my graduation ceremony, and I had planned a trip to Australia, which I'd been planning since I was a kid, and I didn't get that. And so realizing that those will come eventually. But yeah, that's my story. I don't know how to end it, but
Well, there's not an end to it yet, Harlie. Your story's still going.
yes.
So I have a question for you that
Okay.
maybe, because I have a little insight, Was Hope the only opportunity that you had when you graduated?
It wasn't. I ended up applying. Well, I went to the job fair and found a few places and actually got, I think, 3 interviews, but there were 2 places, Hope and another place up north, that were kind of fighting over me. Because I was able to have experience and insight. And I mean, um, I want to be a social worker, which I am, but I want to eventually maybe do case management with foster care. Um, and so I have a lot of experience through Hope in that. And with CASA, I was a court appointed special advocate for 2.5 years. So yeah, when I graduated, I had 2 job offers and they kept throwing money at me. One person was like, okay, well, I'll give you this. And then the next person was like, okay, well, I'll give you that. Um, Eventually it came down to housing. Housing in Chicago is very expensive. Housing here is not as expensive. So I ended up staying in this area for, I'm gonna do a few years here um, to get experience. And I have. It's been a lot. I've been in charge of putting together a brand new building and figuring out how to facilitate that. So I'm getting supervisor experience, but I'm also getting planning experience on how to run an agency. And also, I have a staff of 9 people, and I've learned how to interview people. And John Marr has helped in that. Helped prepare for interviews, like, because interviewing somebody is just as terrifying as being interviewed. And so I've learned how to do that and whatnot. But yeah, so I don't know that I'll stay here forever, but for now, like I said, Hope won't let me leave anytime soon. But
Anybody have any questions for Harlie? You can see that she's kind of bared her soul a little bit on some of the things that she's talked about. Because we've worked together, I know a little bit more about her, and she has had challenges that she has overcome throughout her whole life. She just shared a few of them with you. But you can see that when she graduated, even with the anxiety, with the grades and the GPA and the struggles that she had there, she still had 2 organizations who wanted her bad enough to negotiate salaries with her, which is almost unheard of for entry-level positions. And the other thing is, it wasn't about her grades. It was about her that they were fighting over. And that's the key. Grades are important. That's why you try to get good grades. That's why you try to have good GPAs. But it's the quality of the person, it's the experiences. You can hear her passion for what she's doing and how her career path led her down that way. Everything was relevant. And that's what people saw.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
Harley,
positive is
I've
good.
got a question because I saw you when you went to our informal networking night, which is it's kind of a networking practice event that we hold when we can do it in person. Um, and you went to the job fairs, and from knowing you, not entirely comfortable with either type of event. How did you get the courage to do those things, and why did you decide to do them?
well, networking is really important and it makes a big difference. Um, and I don't like public speaking. My face is super red, and I will probably have to watch a Disney movie when I go home, just being honest, because I'm like, this is a lot. But it's important to talk about, and it's important. And so I would hype myself up and say, okay, if you go and do one person, then you can take 5 minutes and breathe. And so that's kind of how I did it. And when I went to the job fair, I picked out 7 stations I wanted to go to, but I did them one at a time. So I went to one, and then I went out and sat and drank like 3 glasses of water. And then I went back into another, and because I'm just not a public speaker and I don't like talking about myself, and um also when people look at my resume, I've noticed they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And I'm like, it's just my life. Like I know that it is a lot in the grand scheme of things, like working 4 jobs at a time and volunteering and doing all this stuff. But to me, it's just, I had to wake up and do it. Like there was no other option. So that's different. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question, but
So we can have a moment of awkward silence while you guys think about anything that you want to ask Harlie. Anything
I
about her?
actually did have a question.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, well, first I want to say your presentation, Harley, it made me kind of feel a little better because I feel like I can relate. Like I'm struggling in college and I'm anxious about everything and I don't like speaking. I don't like putting myself out there. So it kind of helps to know that like you don't do like it either, but you forced yourself to do it and now you're where you're at. But I wanted to ask, you mentioned like struggling a lot in college. When did you realize like, okay, I'm on the right track, I'm volunteering as I need to be? Because it's like I'm in my junior year and I feel like I'm behind when it comes to me finding a career, because of those reasons. Like I work too much, so I haven't been able to volunteer anywhere, or I'm too anxious all the time, so I can't find myself to ask for help. So just when did you realize like, okay, I'm doing what I need to be doing? I don't know if that question was kind of vague.
No, it makes sense. I still don't know what I'm doing. So I think just, I mean, being honest, like, being upfront, I think one thing was, I think realizing that like, so like I said, there through 2018, I was working 4 jobs and volunteering and doing schoolwork, and it was a lot, and I still don't know how I did it. But realizing that like I needed to take time to find help. Like, so and emailing is simple. Like you can email somebody, and John Meyer and I still email. Like I'm not able, because I'm busy with my job, I'm not able to always Zoom with him, but I'm able to email and be like, hey, I'm having a really hard week. I just wanted you to know, like that kind of thing. So sometimes just seeking out and just being vulnerable, which is easier said than done, trust me. But and finding people that actually are caring and act like they care. I don't know that that makes sense, and it may be more aggressive than I mean it to be, but you can tell when someone really cares, and you can tell when someone has to care because it's their job, right? So finding the people that actually care, and then kidnapping those people and holding on to them forever. So AKA John Maher. He's great. If you haven't talked to him, just saying, you should slide into his email because he's amazing. A baby angel in disguise, I say.
I was gonna say, do you think the career service helped a lot? Because I spoke with Bobby a while ago. She helped me with my resume, and she told me to come back because I'm supposed to be starting an internship this summer. But I don't know. I'm scared, I guess, to ask for help.
Right. So I will tell you, in my personal experience, that career services did help me, and not just in the career services part, but then they also became a place where I felt safe. And so I scheduled a meeting with John and laid on his floor and cried. Like, I mean, like it was just a way, like I was able to connect with him. And then I'm still connecting with him. So I'm a supervisor now, and I have to do things that, like, I have to interview people and I have to look at resumes and all that stuff, which is funny because a year ago he was fixing my resume, and now I'm having him help me hire people. And so, yeah, career services has definitely been huge for me. And I worked with both of them, so I'm blessed. But both of them are great. But yeah, seeking out help, which again, when you work full time and you're going to school, it's really hard. So, but it's important.
I think speaking for career services, we're here to help, and we're here to help with anything. And I think sometimes it's intimidating to come talk to us because you think that we're successful and we know how to do everything. But if this isn't my session, but if I were to tell you about my undergraduate experience, you'd be wondering how anyone let me into graduate school. So if you guys think in your head that we're going to be judgmental, completely the opposite. We've all had to start somewhere, and we've all had to overcome something. And so it's more a case of coming in and you saying, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. How do I get there? And we're going to help you figure that out from wherever you are right now, because we have to work from wherever you are. And the other thing I'm going to say is hiring John Marr was the smartest thing I have done as director of the office, because he is the kindest, most caring individual I've ever met. So working with him is a joy. And I get comments from students all the time about how he goes above and beyond and how he makes a difference. And he really wants to tell me to shut up right now, but he won't. So the two of us who work with people the most in the office are doing it because we love it, because we know and we can see what you guys often can't see, which is how amazing you are, and you just need help getting there.
I have a question. So you said that it's based in Charleston, but you go to other counties as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just wondering, do you have any like internship opportunities, or do you guys do that?
So not at the moment, but we are not for summer, but we're hoping to get fall, maybe. They're coming in the future. That's my goal, but with opening our brand new facility, trying to get everything set up by summer just wasn't going to happen. So we're hoping we'll have them for the fall, and then definitely by spring of next year, we will have them. If I can help it, we will have interns, especially in the shelter. Because I mean, they'll help it. So they'll help me. So I do less. No, I do a whole bunch of things. But so hopefully soon they're coming. That's the plan. But as of right now, no. But I don't know if they put the contact information, but I can put my contact information in the chat. And you, again, this is networking, right? So you can email me or call me. Email's the easiest way, just because I run around like a chicken with my head cut off when I'm at work. Yeah, does that answer your question? So it's coming soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. I didn't know with COVID and stuff, but
yes.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So thank you for the things that you said, Bobby and Harlie. But I want to say too, for those of you that are struggling with things, when you're in college, Bobby's comments is, we did too, right? Everyone does. We all deal with different things. And when you talk to your friends, everybody's dealing with something. It's how you overcome it. And you can see from Harlie's personality and her presentation, who wouldn't be her advocate? Anybody that works that hard to do well and better themselves and put themselves on a path and overcome the challenges that she has, who would not be in her corner? I mean, all of you, if she just asked you for help, I can see you all would do exactly the same thing. So by Harlie offering her help, this is a chance for you to not only build your network and add her to that network, but it's a chance for her to be your advocate too. So she's actually giving back some of the things that she has received. So come and see us. This isn't a career services advertisement, but Harlie kind of turned it into one. But if we can help you, let us. Emma, if you're looking for an internship, there are other organizations, especially if you're looking for different places. That's some of the things that we do. And if you haven't been familiar with career services in the past, there's no better time to get to know us than now. You're never too late you might be a little late looking for internships, but there's always something available. We can always point you in some direction and
Okay,
help out.
thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions for Harlie? I mean, we've pried pretty deeply into her life already.
Not even close.
That is true. Okay, Harlie, thank you for the advice. We'll bring it to a close unless you have closing comments or anything else that you'd like to say.
No, I mean, John said it. I mean, I do work at Hope, but also, I've been there. My GPA is not the best. It still isn't, but I graduated. I did it somehow. I still look, I mean, John said, like, Harlie, you made it to the top of the mountain, and I'm at the top of the mountain, but looking back, I have no idea how I did it. So I'm not saying that I am the best advocate, but if you need help, I mean, I love to listen. I do it every day for my job, and it's one of my favorite things to do is help people and whatever. So, I mean, you can email me. Like I said, email is the easiest way because I check it every 2 hours with my job. So that is the best way, but I do love helping people in any way. And if you ever need help, you can call me for jobs or, personal, or if you ever know anybody. We're trying to get back to where people know what Hope is, because unfortunately we've dropped the ball. So not a lot of people know about our organization. So hopefully in the future I can bring Hope back to Eastern. That's my goal, is, making sure that everybody knows where we are and what we do. Yeah, that's me.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Harlie. I'm going to stop the recording now so everyone will hear the voices again.